You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the Eternal Tournament Series. We are about to jump into round 6, the final round of Swiss before we make our cut to top 8. I am once again joined by my wonderful co-host, Truedawn. And boy, I gotta say, I did a little greed for myself, and we're going to be seeing another match of Juaspas on this FTS Witching Hour deck because I can't stay away. I'm absolutely just transfixed by this deck, and I have to see Witching Hour get played on a tournament stream.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when it happens. And I'm looking forward to when you finally get to see it. But this matchup is pretty interesting. I think that generally it's going to favor the Witching Hour deck, but Combray just has its raw power. It can just do its thing and like run away with the game with Mystic Ascendants and stuff and draw the right amount of harsh rules. So I think in the average case, Juaspas should be favored. The threats he's presenting are very hard for the Combray deck to deal with. It's the situation we were talking about last game where like kind of need to harsh roll everything and you can't harsh roll everything. But that said, he could still just play Ironthorn, Mystic Ascendant, Juaspas system answers, and stuff can happen. So
yeah, I think I would definitely put Juaspas at like a 5 to 10% favorite here, but I think TheSkeejay on Big Combray is going to have much easier of a time than the Armory deck in this matchup. Cards like Great Parliament, assuming you can get to 8 power, producing 2 owls are very good. They can block a lot of the lower tokens. Mystic Ascendant, like you said, can create a bunch of value. The fact that this will be a long game means Martial Ironthorn becomes 3 extra harsh rules, very likely. And it's also reasonably hard for Juaspas to deal with some of the nastier threats out of his opponent. He does have 4 Combust, but that's really his only way of handling any threat. So he's going to have to be saving those for Martial Ironthorns or Mystic Ascendants, whatever he values as the most dangerous. Valkyrie Enforcer, another really important card in this matchup, going to allow him to silence the Ephemeral Wisps and stop him from creating an exceptional amount of value like we would normally see.
also just like the 3 damage clock, like I have definitely played this deck and had a Valkyrie just go coast to coast on me because you're really, really cold to flyers. Like you can make a flyer with Mirror's Disciple or Witching Hour, but outside of that, that's it. And like maybe those flyers aren't big enough sometimes. So Valkyrie is actually a pretty reasonable clock. Same with the Great Parliament tokens. Yeah, and the biggest thing for Juaspas' removal is stretched very thin. He only has the 4 Combust. He's just relying upon his engine to be too powerful to not care to have to interact with his opponent's creatures. But the Combray deck like is pretty powerful interactions. Like not killing Mystic Ascendant or Ironthorn is problematic. So we'll see how he's able to use his removal, if he's able to hold it for the important threats or is pressured in such a way where he has to use it on something less important.
Yeah, 2 decks functioning on very different axes, very different game plans here. So we're going to see which one can prove to be stronger. And I gotta say, TheSkeejay's opening hand looks pretty great, and we do see him just go ahead and snap keep that. No question there. 2 Combray healers, going to give him a bunch of life and provide very solid blocking bodies in the early game, which is what you need to prevent Juaspas from running away with.
Yeah, the main card in this hand is Great Parliament. Great Parliament, even just the 1 owl is very good. If it's a 2 owls, that's exceptional. But playing this on turn 4 is just a 4/4 owl, like demands an answer. It's a 5-turn clock that none of Juaspas' creatures like interact with favorably, so he has to actually play a spell to stop it. So we might see a early combust have to use on that.
Yeah, and we do see TheSkeejay picking up a little bit of an awkward card here. He hit Power, which was fine last turn, but this turn he has Vanquish, and Vanquish is a very awkward card in this matchup. The only time it's really ever going to be active is if a Scrap Tank gets out of control, or if we see multiple Obelisks, which would also be bad since he's playing a lot of tokens, or third case, Witching Hour, which is also not good because Witching Hour produces 3 tokens. Juaspas also just binned a Vault of the Praxis, so I'm very curious as to what that quarry hit.
It is likely due to the fact that he doesn't have time, or at least not double time. So that's what I would expect the answer to be. That's what that seems to telegraph. This is a good attack here. He gets 3 damage for free, gets to devour and look for the power that he appears to be missing, and we'll see if he gets it.
Yeah, very true. And maybe that is maybe he did go ahead and bin it for power. Maybe that was what he felt that he really needed here. TheSkeejay gonna have some options here, but I mean 3 Combri healers in hand. This is certainly how you fight this matchup. You just keep gaining health and you keep sticking really solid bodies on the board. And Scrap Tank is what we see picked up. And that Vanquish is going to find a target in this case.
We'll actually get to do some stuff. So TheSkeejay is doing a really good job of blunting like the early pressure that Juaspas putting on, but this is actually kind of like a red herring. Like Juaspas is just attacking because his attacks happen to be profitable. Like all this chip damage doesn't really matter. Like, just attack as he can, he doesn't need to. So he's probably gonna pump the brakes on this coming turn, and that's okay. Because again, like as long as the game, like if the game keeps going on, he's more likely to cast Witching Hour, he's more likely to draw Xenon Obelisk. So he wants the game to be slow. He was just attacking because he could.
Yeah, and we see Seek Power there for Juaspas, finds him his first time sigil, which gives him a time influence, and that is very important for him. Now Obelisk is able to be cast. He is one step closer to Vault of the Praxis, and both of which are, very, very solid cards in this matchup. They do go a long way with this token strategy to helping, take over the match for him. Obelisk certainly on a much more obvious front, but Vault of the Praxis as well, just providing, incremental card advantage.
Yeah, and it's gonna be rough to get to something like Vault of Praxis, especially because he bend it, and like this is where the second time source comes into play. That's why I cut Vault of Praxis in favor of Mystic Ascendant. Is getting the second primal and also 6 Shadow for Witching Hour just proved to be too challenging too often. And we're seeing Juaspas kind of get the business end of that in this game, where he had to just discard a Vault of Praxis because he was just nowhere near close to casting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna see some interesting attacks here. I have to imagine. Like I have to imagine Juaspas is gonna. Oh, this is great. This combust right here gonna fuel this, and that makes the Scrap Tank big enough that he's probably comfortable bashing in with it, because it's going to require a triple block to take it down, which gets him another 6 damage and still gets him one of the Combri healers killed off. Meanwhile, TheSkeejay is going to have a very nice Great Parliament on the follow-up, but this is going to depend on what Juaspas can reload with.
Yeah, it's just whether or not Juaspas can beat this Great Parliament is like what this is down to. The 2/4 owls may not seem like this just like super life-threatening thing in most matchups, but against this deck it is. Like he will die to this if he doesn't either draw Witching Hours or Xenobolus to pressure back. Like these 2/4 owls are a huge problem.
Yeah, definitely. Witching Hour will be able to take care of them very cleanly with the killer horse as well as the flying horseman. Obelisk would also be great here, especially if Juaspas hits 8 power. This would be super useful for him here. Curious as to what he's playing. Another Scrap Tank. Okay, so I would definitely A space here then with the Scrap Tank, and this puts TheSkeejay in an awkward situation, because even if he does block all these, like obviously the Scrap Tank is just going to get absolutely massive here.
Yeah, so it'll put like it. Although the Comber Killers will like just chump block. Juaspas is at 27, so these owls are just actually a 5-turn clock by 1. So he can currently not race the Scrap Tank. He might need to stay back and look to gang block it, or to dissuade it from attacking, or like main phases Desert Marshal. But Juaspas has at least presented enough pressure where TheSkeejay might be apprehensive to attack with these owls.
Yeah, and important to note, Juaspas has TheSkeejay down to a 5-turn clock with just the spiders, and it's obviously very hard for TheSkeejay to block these spiders without sacrificing very valuable units. Eventually, the Combri healers or the owls are going to have to get sacked into these spiders, and that is very actually important in this case. And I mean, even if next turn TheSkeejay does just hit A space again, like he might lose some of his tokens, but he's pretty much guaranteed to push 3 damage. And then this Scrap Tank is also massive, so Scrap Tank is definitely going to be a very impending force that comes down. Is he blocking the Scrap Tank? You can't not block the Scrap Tank.
Yeah, he has to throw something into the furnace. And yeah, it's just so the Scrap Tank is just acting as the Abyss, just eating a creature every turn. and the Death Touch Spiders are still coming in. He's in a spot to win this race, so he's going to be able to potentially beat the 2/4/4 flyer. The assembly line is also pretty good. And yeah, TheSkeejay drawing power there is not great. He just needs to hang back, right? He can't even attack.
No, he absolutely cannot attack here. He is, whoa, I don't think you can afford to get in with the Owls here. Your clock is nowhere near fast enough.
I mean,
We
he's not
see
dead. He jump off the 11/11 and go to 2. I don't know where that puts him on the following turns, but he's not dead.
Yeah, I think the problem is, like, if you accept that you're going to 2 this turn and you know you have to sack one of your units into the scrap tank, I mean, the spiders themselves become lethal. Like, I feel like you needed to hang back there and, soak up some tokens at least. Try and stave off some more of this damage. Combry Healer's an okay pickup, but it's not going to be enough. I'm pretty sure that he will have 5 units able to crash through. Actually, no. That will be no. Yeah, I'm correct.
Exactly 5.
Yeah, exactly 5 units. So TheSkeejay here, unfortunately, just dead on board. Juaspas going to get another game off here where we don't really even need to see the Witching Hour come out. He seems to be doing. Yeah, that's also very important to note. I mean, Scrap Tank in this case was what did all the work. 2 Scrap Tanks back to back really did just put a lot of pressure on TheSkeejay and all these token cards. Hopefully he can get it in sideboard. That'll be a lot better. Let's take a look at these player sideboards and see what kind of things we're going to have coming in. Important to note out of the gate, TheSkeejay, Infinite Hourglass. I definitely going to see that one coming in. Decay is also going to probably have to come in here to help deal with the Obelisk. Even though you didn't see Obelisk that game, it's more of a rarity that you don't see Obelisk in those kind of decks. Normally, it will hit the battlefield. So very important to have a way to deal with it.
And it's actually really awkward for TheSkeejay because a card like Vanquish is something you'd want to take out in this spot. We just lost the giant scrap tanks, but like, how often is that going to happen? Like, I feel like most of the time you're going to like keep Vanquish in, and it's going to be a bad card or a dead card. So like, that's one of the weird things in sideboarding against this Wishing Hour deck is cards like Vanquish. Do you take it out or do you leave it in? Because it like both could be wrong or both could be right.
Yeah, very true. On the other side of the table for Juaspas, he's actually got some really cool choices of cards he could bring in here. I feel like most of his sideboard is actually good in this matchup. Sabotage is probably one. Furnace Mage is probably the worst of the cards to bring in, so I doubt we'll see that. But Sabotage is okay. Slow, Suffocate, and Annihilate are all pretty solid in this matchup, though. I mean, Slow on Big Combry isn't as detrimental as it is to some decks, since they are generally able to get to those high power amounts. But sticking a Mystic Ascendant on 12 or a Great Parliament on 8 is certainly frustrating. Suffocate also really great in this matchup, helps take care of the early threats like Combry Healer and Seraph. Desert Marshal also importantly gets swept up by it. Annihilate, again, another card really good to bring in. A lot of single faction units that are going to be very annoying. Valkyrie Enforcer, Sandstorm Titan, Martial Ironthorn, Mystic Ascendant, the Owls from Great Parliament. So lots of targets all around for this removal.
Yeah, it boils down to what Juaspas wants to bring out. The deck, it does, like, there's not a lot of room for sideboarding in this deck. You need your dudes, you need your payoff cards, and like you don't have a lot of things outside of those two. So I would like to see Slow, definitely. Annihilate's probably fine. I don't know if Sabotage has enough things. It's really only Harsh Rule, and you have Slow for that. I think that it's just, you don't want to dilute your deck too much. So I could definitely see like any number of those cards coming in, but I think you have to choose between like 1 or 2 to actually bring in because you just don't have enough space.
Yeah, very true. We are getting into game. You probably are right about Sabo. I was considering Great Parliament because that card's obviously very annoying, but yeah, probably won't. If Juaspas pulled anything out, I have to imagine he pulled out maybe like a couple copies of Vault, maybe a couple copies of Obelisk, since he can assume his opponent will sideboard in Decay. Maybe like a Witching Hour as well, just to make a little bit of room.
Yeah, but when you're signing up stuff like that, you probably like shouldn't be sideboarding because, I mean, I agree. You should probably set up Vault of Praxis, but that's because I think it shouldn't be in his deck at all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The only thing that the only thing that inclines me to side out some of my like obelisks and things like that is the idea that TheSkeejay is probably sideboarding in Decay. But I mean, TheSkeejay's hand here is fairly awkward if Juaspas has any removal.
You also you don't want to do their job for them. Like if they bring in answers to a card, like sure, you don't want to side it out and like kind of do their job for them. You just want to draw as many as possible, so you draw more like obelisks than they draw decays.
Yeah, that's definitely one angle to take it. I think there's some argument if you know your opponent is bringing in, like, for example, if he could guarantee TheSkeejay to bring in like 4 decay, for example. I think he only plays 3. But if he were to bring in 4, for example, I think in some cases it's valid to just pull out all of your targets and just say, I'm just going to leave you a bunch of dead cards in your hand. Definitely Ball to the Praxis, since we've both kind of touched on it. That card's a little hard for him to hit.
Yeah, and we just have, as this game is progressing, we just have TheSkeejay just not really doing a whole bunch, and Juaspas is just playing dudes. Like we talked about before, like this deck looked like it's just spinning its tires, just playing creatures that don't matter, but then like it's reducing the cost of Witching Hour to like play that, and it's like, oh, okay, that's what he was going towards, or he just plays the Obelisk. So all of this looks like nonsense in play right now, but it's fueling just so much other stuff, like the Combust, which allows us to attack, and then he plays the power, gets back his Ephemeral Wisp, so there's a bunch of nonsense in play, but it's all good.
Yeah, and I mean, look at how awkward that turn was when TheSkeejay had Sandstorm Titan up. Like, he couldn't even attack with the Sandstorm Titan because he's scared to let Juaspas just get the Ephemeral Wisp back and continue reducing the cost of that Witching Hour. Which, truthfully, I think honestly might be a mistake on his part, though he might have been worried about the Titan getting triple block there. Either way, Combust takes care of it, so not too worried about it. Reality Warden, there we go. That's a big one from TheSkeejay. That'll help.
7/7 does deal with these Ephemeral Wisps, so it's not nothing. And actually, TheSkeejay is building up towards this Ironthorn ultimate. Like, Juaspas is gonna have to deal with it eventually.
Yeah, he certainly will. If Juaspas can find an Obelisk for next turn, this is going to be absolutely killer for him. And we will see how that plays out in the coming turns. I mean, TheSkeejay, unfortunately for him, like himself, he's just drawn a bunch of power and not a lot of cards. We see he'll be at, I think he had about 7 or 8 power, including, he did play Find the Way, but 1 copy of Find the Way, Sandstorm Titan, Martial Ironthorn, Valkyrie Enforcer, and Reality Warden is not very good when your opponent's played, 7 or 8 cards of their own.
And worth noting, Juaspas is getting a little bit punished for his greedier mana base. He only has played 3 Shadow Sources in 7 turns. Several of his cards have been like Fire Sigils or Time Sigils, which is why I'm just very averse to playing non-Shadow Sources. Like you play 1 Fire Sigil, 1 Time Sigil just for the Seek powers, but when you play more than that, stuff like this happens, and Wishing Hour is just not even close to being cast.
Yeah, and actually I think TheSkeejay is going to run away with this game at this rate. That Great Parliament's going to be absolutely detrimental here. We're going to see 3 Owls come down, which is going to put a nice 2-turn clock on Juaspas. And the Martial Ironthorn is set to go off next turn. So Juaspas needs to find something big here. He either needs another Combust to take care of Martial Ironthorn, or he's going to need like a power plus double Obelisk would have been great here. Whoa. What?
Interesting.
I have no idea why he targeted that owl. That just cost him the game.
I mean, he was like dead to the owls too, I guess, but...
But you're just dead this turn now, right? Like, I'm pretty sure this is lethal. Yeah, that was just actually lethal due to the Martial Ironthorn going off.
I think that was just a voluntary concession, understanding that he couldn't really beat the owls anyway, so...
Yeah, that's fair. I guess it would have depended on what his hand was. I think there were maybe some situations. For example, if your opponent attacks with all the owls next turn, the Martial Ironthorn gets combusted. If you hit an Obelisk and you also have a power to turn everything on, I think he would have had lethal on the backswing, actually. His opponent was... TheSkeejay was very low at that point. I mean, not very low, but 16 is not very good when you're staring down, 7 3/3s or 4/4s.
And we did see in that game that Juaspas played a bunch of nonsense and didn't draw any of his payoff cards. He didn't draw Vault Praxis, didn't draw Scrap Tank, didn't draw Witching Hour, didn't draw Zenith Obelisk. And there's a lot of those cards. Like his 4 of each of those, except for Scrap Tank has a 3. But you need those to just make all of this other nonsense worth it. And when you draw none of those, then it's a problem.
Yeah, very, very true. When you don't hit your important payoff cards like the Scrap Tank, like the Xenon Obelisk, or your Witching Hour, not that it would have been castable that game, but when you don't hit those things, your strategy is essentially, I'm playing a bunch of little 1/1s, and it's very easy for a deck like Big Combry to say, okay, that's cool. I don't really care. Like, you can't attack into me, and I'm just gonna keep sitting over here dirtling up and building towards my my shotgun, and eventually Martial Ironthorn's gonna turn that shotgun around and just completely blow your board out. So
yeah, he just needs to. It's really just about saving the combusts for key cards like Martial Ironthorn and actually just drawing something to do with all the nonsense. And I don't think he diluted his deck too much after sideboarding. I don't think we saw any sideboard cards. I think we saw Sabotage, but that's one of the risks you run if he over sideboarded potentially that took out some of his payoff cards, and then that would be a reason for what we saw.
Yeah, very true. Juaspas leading off with the Time Sigil, very interesting. That's the worst of his 3 colors, generally speaking. Definitely early, since he doesn't really have anything except Ephemeral Wisp to play until turn 4 that requires time.
Second Time Sigil is so bad.
Yeah, double time. I'm inclined to believe then that he probably had to mulligan his hand, and he mulliganed into a worse hand, which is certainly very good for TheSkeejay. Gives him a very real possibility of being able to bring this game home. Seek Power is super important here for Juaspas. That's going to give him the ability to actually play some tokens down.
And this is definitely the mana base coming back to bite him. You really don't want to have any sources that don't produce shadow. And the minimum you could have is 2. But he's already played 3 sigils that doesn't have shadow, so he's A, isn't able to cast shadow spells right now, and B, probably will not be able to cast Witching Hour in this game.
Yeah, very unlikely that he will be able to cast Witching Hour. We see Assembly Line coming down, so thankfully he did find that fire. But yeah, we see him miss a power drop here, and this gives TheSkeejay the go-ahead to kind of take over this game. And I have a feeling TheSkeejay is going to very easily take this one down. His hand looks very solid, and unless Juaspas finds a Shadow Sigil and is packing multiple combusts, I think TheSkeejay is going to find his way into the top 8 fairly easily.
I mean, Juaspas could play power and then a Xenon Obelisk, and that's certainly a path. Although if he had Xenon Obelisk, I doubt he would have just traded the 1/1. But that's certainly a way that he can come back. Xenon Obelisk does make this board very hard to attack into. But I don't expect Witching Hour to play a part in this game.
Yeah, Witching Hour is certainly not going to be relevant here. Let's see what this Quarry gets. Ephemeral Wisp to the bin, pretty good for him. Definitely one of the cards you're looking to toss. Has some very nice interaction with the card's text itself. Considering he didn't play the card he picked up, that probably was something like a Xenon Obelisk. Maybe a Vault of the Praxis. Definitely something a little more expensive.
Yeah, that's very likely. This Devour here is he's going to be able to draw out of this, but he's also going to be under pressure from 2 Sandstorm Titans and a Mystic Ascendant. So TheSkeejay has a lot going on. Juaspas really needs a bunch of stuff all at once. And doing nothing this turn for Vault of Praxis is not the best, but it is forward progress.
If he can play a 1-drop like a Grenadin Drone, that would be very solid here. But yeah, Vault of the Praxis into an Ephemeral Wisp, not the greatest right here. We see Martial Ironthorn being picked up in hand. That's important for TheSkeejay. TheSkeejay is in the position right now where he just wants to keep drawing anything. Any units he draws are just money right now. This is his way to winning the game because Juaspas does not have removal. He does not have a way to take care of all these threats, and the more of them that get stuck on the board, just the more impossible this situation becomes.
I mean, if Juaspas can spin his tires and keep playing 1/1s and have reasonable blocks or chump blocks and buy time to get to Xenon Obelisk, and then the board's hard to attack into. This Annihilate also helps a lot. So I think he actually has a way to slow this game down to a point where he can actually turn it around. This Ironthorn is hard to beat, but he's able to kill it before it ults. He has a path.
Yeah, he does have a path. I honestly don't see a situation in which he really can win from here without like multiple obelisks, essentially, because these Sandstorm Titans and next turn the Marshal attacking are just going to be so much damage, and Juaspas is going to have 3 units to sack every single turn to not just start dying. And assuming the scrap tank comes off the board at some point, or units get low enough, like the Combri healer will start getting in, the Valkyrie enforcer will start getting in. I mean, he's got 5 threats that present very real amounts of damage. So Juaspas needs to hit something very big right here to get him back into this.
And Xenobelisk goes like a decent way, gives some reasonable blocks. Devour is not really what you want to see. It means he's looking for something, doesn't have it. He's at 27. Like, if he needs to spend this turn spinning his tires with Quarry and Devour to find something and then set up something next turn, he could just take a lot of this damage. But again, the Iron Thorn's just still building up to ultimate.
Wow, I have to wonder what card he just hit, because we just saw him bin a Combust. I don't think Combust was necessarily the way to win this game. Maybe because that one's not reduced cost, so I'm not too sure what card exactly that was, but definitely interesting one way or another.
I think you would take Obelisk over Combust if you already had a Combust in hand. So something like that likely is what he saw.
Yeah, probably. I guess that's what it has to be. It has to be an Obelisk, because I can't think, or another Scrap Tank. Those are the only 2 cards I could think of that you would possibly actually have traded there for that Combust, because these 5/6s are looking really threatening, and TheSkeejay is very high up in power. If he ever finds Great Parliament, this game is just over.
Although the Sandstorm Titans are making Great Parliament like not as good. It's still a bunch of power and toughness, but it doesn't have evasion.
Yeah, certainly not evasion, so they just get through. But we're already seeing Juaspas's board reduced to the point where he's having a hard time coming up with blockers for all these units.
Although one card that immediately gets Juaspas back in the game and just slams the brakes on TheSkeejay's aggression is Torrent of Spiders. So if Juaspas can just keep stalling the game until he can play Torrent of Spiders, like TheSkeejay just has to slam the brakes.
Wow, and we do see another Combust come out. Wow, and he's going to take care of Seraph, which is a very good hit. Marison's Disciple is what he chose instead of the 3rd Combust, which makes sense because the 1/1 Deadly Scorpion does provide basically another Combust. It just stalls your opponent out. And TheSkeejay picks up a Mystic Ascendant, but doesn't have a power to play with it. Although he could essentially drop this on the board for free. You've seen 3 Combusts out of 4 out of Juaspas, so very unlikely he can handle this. Though we did see Annihilate sideboarded in the last game, I believe so.
And the fact that Juaspas is not didn't gang block down the Sandstorm Titan leads me to believe he does have something like Torrent of Spiders, or that he just doesn't want this Valkyrie to have flying. I think his plan is to keep this Sandstorm Titan in play like forever and just chump block it with whatever, because making it so none of TheSkeejay starts can have flying actually makes living a lot much easier for Juaspas.
Yeah, Juaspas has actually finally now gotten himself to a reasonable position, I think, where if he hits a power, he now draws a card every turn to replace the power. And this does, okay, now he's got a Xenon Obelisk, all right, and it's online. Now he's in a position where he can start to help take this game over. Desert Marshal's going to go a long way here as far as taking down these Ephemeral Wisps. That's actually very important in this matchup to take care of the Ephemeral Wisp.
Yeah, and actually, TheSkeejay can deal with 2 of these things. He can vanquish the Scrap Tank. He can silence the Ephemeral Wisp. His attacks become slightly more reasonable then, but again, I don't think Juaspas actually wants to stay trying to die. He's content to just chump block that or whatever. He doesn't want this Valkyrie to get flying ever, or any Parliament tokens to get flying ever. So that's likely just going to stay in play. And yeah, he's just needs to play creatures every turn, and he'll eventually be able to outvalue TheSkeejay.
I have to say, Truedawn, I'm very confused as to why I attack with Valkyrie Enforcer there.
Yes, that seemed odd.
Yeah, Valkyrie Enforcer is one of your win conditions, essentially. You want the Sandstorm Titan to die and have that Valkyrie Enforcer get flying again and provide you a way to win this, because fighting on the ground, at least until you find a Marshal Ironthorn with 15 power, is not the way you are winning this game.
And at least TheSkeejay still has this Mystic Ascendant that makes it so he can't really flood, although not anymore. It is now dead. Is that so? He's
4 Combust down. Yep,
that's it. So he's cast 3 and he binned 1, so there are no more Combusts. That is it. So I guess that is good news for SkeeJay, but the game might not be about that anymore. Like, Juaspas has firmly wrested control back of the board. He now has 2 Voltapraxis. Like, he can just start churning through his deck. Even though his mana was bad early, the game has gone on so long that he's only 1 shadow away from casting Witching Hour.
Yeah. Oh, Harsh Rule. That's a weird card in this situation to find, because I don't think that's where you want to be right now. Not this turn anyway. Maybe a turn or two from now, but certainly not this turn.
Yeah, I could definitely envision a turn in a couple turns where you pull the trigger on that, but not yet.
Yeah, and Juaspas is just kind of still waiting it out. I think I am almost positive that one of the 4 cards in his hand is Witching Hour, if not more than one of the 4 cards, because I can't imagine what cards he is holding based on the fact that I don't think he's holding straight power, because he missed some power drops earlier, and I don't think we've seen all the cards played out. And I can't imagine what other cards he would really be holding on to at this point that he would be worried about playing.
Yeah, I expect that they have at least 1 Witching Hour. Although he could have cast it that turn. He did play the 6 Shadow Influence.
Yeah, and we do see
a little bit gun shy of Harsh Rule, but then that would mean he only has 1 Witching Hour. But playing this one here probably means that he has a second one.
Yeah, and Witching Hour does come down, and this is going to be pretty nasty for Juaspas. Not only did he get 2 cards from playing the Witching Hour, but now he can go ahead and make some very, very nice trades for himself. SkeeJay is going to have to use the Harsh Rule next turn now. There's no question about it.
Yeah, we see the Killer Horse not even getting used because, like we were talking about, Juaspas does not want that Sandstorm to die. He wants that there forever. And then, like, if you're not killing that, and nothing else can attack profitably, so why use the Killer? So he just elects to pass the turn.
Yeah, definitely taking his time here. And SkeeJay considering where he goes from here. And I think that answer is pretty simple. I'm pretty sure you just Harsh Rule and drop Seraph, and then next turn you start popping off Seraph activations.
That certainly seems like the best path available to him. You would force your opponent to have if you're in SkeeJay's seat, you're like pretty certain they have a second Witching Hour, but they're never playing the second Witching Hour as long as the first is in play. So it's like you're going to bait that with the Harsh Rule. So you just have to Harsh Rule, play Seraph, hope they don't have it. And if they do, you get wrecked.
Yep, pretty much. Like if they've got another Witching Hour and they can take care of your Seraph, you're done here. But yeah, and unfortunately, he really is done because the Scorpion Wasp would be able to be ambushed in, but not quite.
Even this Merson's Disciple is just very good.
Yeah, very true. Like this Merson's Disciple really does. Oh, and a 3rd Voltapraxis. Wow. 7 spiders off Torrent Spiders. All right, well that is certainly a clock, I have to say. 21 damage coming in, and it's very hard to block at all.
I mean, I guess you could hit like, I don't know.
Well, yeah. What do you hit
Not
here
that
helps? Yeah, False Sprint's not great. I mean, it's something, but yeah, your Juaspas is definitely going to hit a space here. If he's lucky, he might even have he can go ahead and play this Granite Drone and hopefully fish another Obelisk up. And if he drops another Obelisk, this is most certainly game. Drawing 3 cards a turn too. Yeah, this is the engine. The engine is officially online. And where I once thought Juaspas was going to have a hard time winning this game, SkeeJay just took too long to get his game plan online. It also helps that Juaspas did draw 4 combusts. Like that was how he won the matchup. Like if he did not have every single one of those combusts, I'm not sure he would be in the same position he's in now.
Yeah, but he could have maybe had one less. Like he could have probably not killed the Mystic Ascendant, but yeah, the first 3 were necessary.
Yeah, very necessary. Let's see what he ends up picking up.
34.
Yeah, 34-10 Field Captain. Definitely pretty big, but not gonna do it unless. Maybe there's some weird scenario, but I can't imagine. Like he just ace spaces here. There's so much damage. Like there's no way you can block it all.
This is definitely a game where you saw Juaspas get paid off for playing Voltapraxis in his deck. Like I do think it's still very greedy and like the mana doesn't support it a lot, but the games where the mana does work out, it's very, very powerful. It's may or may not be better than Mystic Ascendant, but it's probably better in that spot.
Yeah, it definitely created a very, very big draw engine for him. Like that was absolutely insane. Juaspas just bringing it down, and I did get to see the Witching Hour get cast. So I am
For
at least
0?
happy with that. And I did get to see it get cast for 0. So that was very impressive. Even if it did just immediately die on the way back, I am still very, very happy to see it get cast. So an awesome, awesome game right there. No more matches, unfortunately, guys. We are all wrapped up. That was a very, very crazy game 3. Wow. Yeah, I'm super happy that we did pick that deck to watch. I'm sure that was an exciting game for all you viewers out there.
Yeah, it's just a super cool matchup because it's a super cool deck on the side of Juaspas. I enjoyed it a lot when I played it a bunch this week. I thought there was room to innovate. If you can make the mana like remotely reasonable to play Vault of Praxis, I'm definitely down for playing Vault of Praxis, but I'd have to like see if that's actually reasonable or if Juaspas is getting lucky or what. So I definitely like the deck a lot.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool deck. Would definitely recommend anybody who has the cards out there to check it out and give it a play. It's super, super fun, not only to play but also to watch from our perspective. Absolutely love the deck. But yeah, so all the matches are finished up. Before we go ahead and cut to a short break before top 8, I just wanted to give a quick shout out and tell everybody to go to aReNGeeternal.com. That is aReNGeeternal.com. You can find some awesome, awesome content there, guys. You can find daily articles by some of the what I consider to be the best players in the game, honestly. Loco Pojo, absolutely fantastic, as you all know. aReNGee, another great player, founder of our site, of course. Neon, definitely what I would consider to be top 3 players in the game. Neon's amazing. Lights Out Ace as well writes articles, also fantastic. Usually just janking around, so he's not high up on the ladder, but don't confuse that. The man's great. Like, he definitely knows his stuff, and he can certainly play this game with the best of them. And Rekenner as well, our tournament organizer, of course. He's been writing tournament articles, so check those out if you want to see some tournament content. We also have the ranked tier list over there that gets updated bi-weekly. We have stock deck lists that you all can check out if you're just trying to, build to a certain archetype. You either need to check out what cards you're missing, or you just want a good idea of, what cards go into a deck. It's nice to be able to gauge those. We got the draft pick order up there, as well as all the tournament information, which gives you a bunch of information about the Eternal Tournament Series, our weeklies that we run, obviously, every week. Also have more good information on there about qualification paths, so you can figure out how you get into the invitationals, which have cash prizes, the mid-season major, and the Worlds information should also be on there, as well as a calendar that just gives you guys an outline of the whole rest of the year and shows you how long the seasons are. So go on down, check out aReNGeeternal.com. Plenty of great content there. You will not be disappointed, I assure you.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff on that site.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is going to be all for round 6, guys. Round 6 is over, so we are going to take a small break while Rekenner does some magic and cuts us to the top 8. And we will be back in just a few minutes with your top 8 bracket and starting the quarterfinals.